All right, guys, we are live. Welcome to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews, and I have a very special guest today, indie author AJ Calvin. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just put the kids to bed, so I'm free. You might say until about 6 a.m. So you have the first book in the Caein. Am I saying that right? The Caein Legacy.
Yes. The Caein
Awesome.
Legacy.
I like that. It's hard to come up with names, right? It's got to be
hmm
one of the hardest things ever just to come up with a good sounding place of fiction. And I think you did well.
hmm Oh, well, thank you.
Of course. So what can we expect? What kind of maybe the subgenre? Maybe the blurb of the first book, which is called Exile,
Exile.
right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. What's the blurb? Give us a little rundown.
Well, I'll just read off the back if that's
That's
all
a
right.
straight, of course, that's the best source.
All right. Andrew grew up in the royal palace of Novania, the eldest son of the queen. He went on to achieve fame and glory as a renowned soldier and was eventually named commander of the king's army. The kingdom believed he would be named heir to the throne, but he has long known he is ineligible. The king is not his father. The truth of Andrew's lineage is only partially known to the king. The identity of his father is a mystery that even Andrew is unaware of. He knows only that his father was a dragon mage and the dragons have fled to another world. Andrew is a skin changer, but the laws of Novania forbid his very existence. If the king were to learn the truth of what he is, he would face execution. The laws are equally hostile to humans born with the mark of the Magi, the ability to wield magic. Andrew's younger half brother, Alexander, bears the mark. The pair keep one another's secrets into adulthood until the king dies unexpectedly and Colin ascends the throne. When Alexander's mark is revealed for all to see, Andrew is faced with a choice: to watch his brother be killed or reveal his true nature in an effort to save him from the headsman's axe. So
All right,
that's
that sounds
Exile.
amazing. Yes. So uh, for a blurb, I have to say that's all encompassing and like it's striking. It makes me want to read it for sure. Sometimes I get blurbs uh, that kind of leave you hanging. I don't know how to really explain it. And by the way,
Mhm.
Timothy Wolf, he's an author too. He's stopped in and wanted to say good evening. So good evening to you,
Oh,
sir.
I've read his book, Platinum Tinted Darkness.
I
Very good
think
read.
awesome. That's great. I'm so glad you've read it. I'm doing a Discord, like my poll on my Discord. I think he's won. So I think I'm reading that in November. So um, that's
It's
awesome
worth
that
the
you've
read.
read it.
I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. So you're interesting. I like interviewing interesting people. So what I mean by that is you skydive, or I'm sorry, you scuba dive.
Yes, I scuba
You
dive.
are, you're.
I'm not sure about jumping out of a plane, but I
I
scuba
know,
dive.
right? It's like right now, if you were to ask me, I'd be like, I would do it, but doing it's a whole nother thing, right?
hmm
I'd probably chicken out.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could do it.
Yeah, it'd be like one of those flash in front of your life kind of things. Like, oh, like I'm gonna jump out of this plane, but real quick, let me, you know. Anywho, you're a cat lover and you hike
hmm
and you write. And guess I think my favorite part is that you're a microbiologist. I love biology. I love biology.
Well, that's
So,
cool.
what do you do exactly?
Um, I work for a pharmaceutical company. I do quality control, so I'm mostly making sure nothing is in the product that shouldn't be there. Like we don't want to see bacteria growing. So a lot of my job is just making sure stuff is safe for patients.
Wow, that's super important.
Um,
I really look up to that. I find that highly interesting. And you live in Colorado, so you have
mhm.
plenty of places to hike.
Yes.
That's awesome. I've never
Yeah,
been. Me and my wife would love to go. Sorry, I
yeah,
interrupted
it's
you.
I'm so fortunate. I mean, I grew up here, and we've always just been able to go to the mountains. It's 30-minute drive. Um, and it's I don't know. I just like hiking. I like to be out in nature.
Well, that's awesome. And I think me being a nature lover also, I live in Ohio and our mountain, well, I live at the beginning of the Appalachian Mountains, but by no means is it the Appalachian Mountains. So it's just like really woody and lots
Okay.
of hills and divots and stuff. So I can't relate a bunch, but I would love to come out there and find out what you're talking about. So some of your recent or other recent series, the Relics of War, you've got the Mage War
Mhm.
Chronicles, Hunted, and now the Caein Legacy. So that's really impressive repertoire you've got. Where exactly can the viewers find your repertoire of work?
So the Relics of War and Hunted are available. You can get ebooks anywhere that they're sold. So they're available Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, Apple. Paperbacks are more limited in distribution. It's just Barnes and Noble and Amazon for those. And then if you want hardcovers, those are distributed through Ingram. So pretty much anywhere Ingram sells, you can get a hardcover of those books.
Okay, that's
The Mage War Chronicles that you mentioned is a series I'm currently writing. None of those are published yet.
okay. Awesome. And that's so good to know because don't get me wrong, I've just recently gotten a Kindle. And when I first started doing this, I was like, I am never going to buy a Kindle. I enjoy grabbing. Speaking of which, sorry, like, what a
Oh,
beautiful cover.
paperback, yay! Mhm.
And I know that you've sent this out to a lot of people and you took the time to write a nice, sweet little personalized note to me. And I just appreciate that. I wanted to tell you. Uh,
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Thank you. And what a striking, my wife is a graphic designer. So I always like to let people know that her, when she says she loves a cover, she's being very critical. She loves the cover.
That's really cool. My artist is Jamie Noble. He's based out of the UK. He's done the cover artwork for all of my published books so far, but the Caein Legacy is by far my favorite set of covers he's done.
And so you said Jamie Noble.
Yes.
I will put any links that I could find for him in the description after this. That's one I did miss, so I will make sure to give him credit in my descriptions because
Okay.
wow, he does deserve it. He does
He'll
deserve it.
appreciate it, and he does so much really good work, not just book covers, but he also does artwork for some of the tabletop and card games too.
That's so cool. One of the things as that I've found myself being intrigued by doing reviews and talking to authors is something I think that goes missed by a lot of people, especially as an indie. I don't know, it's called an illustrator for an indie author. Wow, they've got an important job, don't they? You know,
Mhm.
and I've just found that so cool. I want to get a couple illustrators on here to interview them. I think that that would be fun. But Jamie Noble did such a good job. Um, so, what kind of what is a subgenre you would place the Exile in?
I would say it's probably epic fantasy. Even though it's a single point of view throughout the book, it to me it feels like it's epic fantasy. There's, the magic and kind of the dragons. They're not a big part of this series, but Andrew's half dragon, so um I'll count it.
Hmm. Well, I absolutely have that vibe too. As it starts, as you said in the blurb, he's unfortunately unable to take the throne. He's only half, right?
Mhm.
And you kind of feel yourself. I like to empathize with characters, and I think you start the book out very well in that, in the fact that at least me personally, and I feel like other readers too will feel this way, is you find yourself empathizing with that character. It's like, wow, that really must, be something he struggles with
Mhm.
growing up, especially um, people not knowing that yet. So that's really cool. What would you say is do you have a writing process? Do you like have a daily word count that you use? I've heard a bunch of different processes. I would love to know yours.
Um, I don't usually check word counts as I go. I The perfect example is Saturday. I finished drafting a sci-fi book that I've been working on for a few months. I finished it Saturday, so I was really excited. I can tell you the page count. I have no idea what the word count is because I save each chapter as its own file. So I'd have to go back and like add it up. And I don't usually do it till I'm done editing and stuff.
Sure.
Um, but I do try to write a little bit of something every day. I usually get about 45 minutes to an hour in the morning before I have to leave for work. And then sometimes I'll work on it a little bit more after I get home. Um, and then weekends, depending on what we have going on, sometimes I'll spend like most of the day writing.
Okay.
Other times, we've got family stuff or
Sure.
other obligations. So I don't know if I really have like a set process. I just try to do something every day.
Well, I think that's a great process. I mean, that sure is a process because somebody I can kind of relate with you. I'm not writing, but trying to find time, right? If I did, having family and life just being life, it's hard to come up with that extra time. So you're putting that into your ambitions. I always like to say one of the biggest reasons I like to give indie authors a platform and shout their name out from the rooftop, I like to say, is because most of you have a 9 to 5 job and kids or a husband, wife, whatever it be, and you're following what drives you, your passion. So I really look up
Hmm.
to that. The cover intrigues me and makes me want to read your book. I'm not the typical fan, so I wanted you to see that one. And Mr. John Douglas came in. He says, "Hail Beardo and hail AJ Calvin." Hail, he says.
Hi.
I love it. Um, so for 1 second, sorry, my thing fell down here. Um, as did you grow up reading fantasy, or was it something you found later in life?
I kind of grew up with it. My dad introduced me to Tolkien when I was fourth or fifth grade. It was his favorite series of books was the Lord of the Rings. And one year for my birthday, he gave me a box set. I don't have those original books anymore. There's a story behind that, but I don't think we need to get into that. But that's really where it started for me, reading The Hobbit and The Fellowship of the Ring and stuff. And then it just branched on from there. I've read a lot of like Raymond Feist books and Catherine Kerr, and the last few years, a lot of indie fantasy and sci-fi.
So were you taken aback just like I was? Unfortunately, when at least for me, and I've heard similar stories and similar opinions, when the indie is attached to something, I think that some people kind of don't count that as much as they should. And I don't know about your experience, but with mine, I've been blown away with the talent um,
Mhm.
within the indie writing circle period, but especially the fantasy. Have you had a similar
Mhm.
view of it?
Yeah. Some of my favorite books now are independently published. I I have a few of them here. Um, the ones I really, really love, I will buy physical copies of. I
I
read
see
most of
JCM
them
Burn
on a
there.
Kindle. Yep. I am
I can
waiting
tell
for
from
his
the
book 4 to go out on paperback.
awesome. That's so cool.
So,
He's such a good guy. I had him
yeah.
on right when I first started doing interviews. He's a very gracious guy. Good writer too. I've only
Mhm.
read Wistful Ascending, but I really really liked it. It was my first space opera uh, ever, and I told him
Oh, really?
I'll
It's a
pick up
great one
another
to
one.
start with.
Yeah, I told him I'll definitely read more because of him. So
I think his 4th book comes out tomorrow,
I
actually.
I know it was this month. I forgot the exact day, but yeah, it's definitely very very soon. You're probably right, tomorrow. So I know J.R.R. Tolkien, obviously, but
Mhm.
maybe what's another author that had a hand in maybe your writing style, or did J.R.R. Tolkien even have a hand in your writing style?
I'm not sure if there was a hand in the style per se, but I liked how he had so many different species involved. There's the orcs and the elves and the dwarves. And with my Relics of War series, I don't have those traditional ones with like dwarves and elves and stuff, but I have other um, people in that world that are not human. Quite a few of them, actually.
Mm.
So I mean, maybe that was partly an influence there. Um, I think when I was originally writing The Relics of War, so this is going to go back to the late 90s when I was
Hmm.
in high school.
I love that.
Um, I was reading um, Raymond Feist's Magician series and the Rift War saga, Serpent War saga, I think is the second one. Um, and that whole like portal thing that kind of came into play a little bit in some pieces of my other series too. I mean, I rewrote that whole thing from its original state when I was a teenager because
Oh wow.
it was not it was not publication ready in its original state. But um, I
A
liked
stepping stone.
the yeah, yeah. I liked a lot of the concept so much that I kept it around until I was like, well, I'm gonna go ahead and revisit this series and rewrite it, and it's done a lot better than I thought it would. So
Well, that's really
that's
cool.
good.
And I what I hear too is a childhood love. And tell me if I'm wrong, but something that you found in your, younger years when you were reading for the first time, something that you adored. I mean, obviously you
Mhm,
wrote, like you said, you wrote it again in your own way. And even if it wasn't something that you wanted to publish, I feel like that's such an intricate part of the process, um, following that
mhm,
love. And I do want to make sure to shout out the whole reason you're doing this book tour, the Escapist Book Company. I'm hoping it's company anyway. So how does it feel knowing that you're on this virtual book tour, and I know you've got some stops after this. Is
mhm.
that how does that feel knowing that your book is being looked forward to?
Um, when I originally so this is my third book tour with Escapist. I'll just start with that. Originally when I first signed up for the first one, I was not sure how it was going to go. I didn't know how my books would be received. I was a little bit terrified. You know, strangers are going to be reading my stuff. What if they hate it? I think everybody has that kind of thing go through their head. Um, but then when people were coming back and they had really positive things to say and they enjoyed it, I was like, well, I've got to do this again. I have other books that are going to be coming out. And with Exile, I was really excited for this tour because this series, when I wrote it, I really, really felt like it was going to do well. I really believed in this story. And I was actually trying to query this series for a few years before I gave up and decided to do it on my own. Um,
So by that you
but
mean you were trying to find a publisher? Okay,
yeah,
because
I was trying to get a traditional publishing deal for this series.
gotcha.
And that process, it it can be soul crushing sometimes.
I can only imagine.
And other times it's just you're submitting and submitting and submitting and you don't hear things or you'll get very generic responses and it's disheartening, I guess, in some ways. But then like I turned 40 this year and I was like, well, prior to that I was like, I want to see this series published in my lifetime. I can't wait forever. And I really, really believed that people would like this story. So that was what prompted me to go the indie route with this series.
I really like that. I mean, to me, that just sounds like pure ambition and passion, and a love for what you're doing. And what I hear most though is you want to have people who enjoy through what you're writing. I think that I can only imagine somebody, me, I do want to eventually write. I find that something I really want to do, and I can only imagine getting a positive response to something as a writer. That would be incredible. That
Hmm.
just sounds really inspiring to me. So
Yeah,
what
I
was?
have to.
No,
Oh, go
please
ahead.
go ahead. If there's a lag, so I'll interrupt you on accident. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Um, I forgot what I was gonna say, so it's fine.
No, absolutely. So, um, I would love to hear what inspired you, to, not just the love for what you're doing or the response that you want to give people, but what was your inspiration behind this book specifically? Was it um, something you thought of while you were hiking? You know, what inspired you to write this book in particular?
Um, so pieces of this story were featured in other projects I worked on over the year, and um, a lot of them didn't get very far before I scrapped them and moved on to something else. But I don't remember like the moment when I had the inspiration for the story because I was thinking about what became Exile for probably more than a year before I actually started to write it. And at the time, like I really wanted to write it, but I was in a very stressful work environment, and I didn't physically have the energy to go home and work on this. And that was probably the hardest period in my life because I love to write. I need
Mhm,
that creative outlet, and I just couldn't do it. Um, but I ended up getting a new job, and I really enjoy where I'm at now. I've been there for 7 years, which is the longest I've ever worked anywhere.
mhm.
um, but the stress level was so much less, and I can write again, and it's been amazing. So,
That's
yeah.
that is incredible. I think that that's a real that's a story in itself. I mean, you take yourself from being in a situation in which you did not favor. It didn't allow you to do what you wanted and what you love to do, and you changed that situation. And I think that takes courage. And a lot of people don't have, not necessarily courage, but maybe I mean it's scary changing. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I don't know if you were doing the same thing with careers or even workplaces, because there's stability in that.
Right.
But you weren't happy with where you were, so you took the bull by the horns, and look at you now. I mean, you've got the book coming out, and it's beautiful. So, um, what is who's your favorite fantasy or just author? Period. I always like this. I always write it down.
Um, so oh, wow.
It's always like the hardest question. I know. I do know that.
Yeah. Um, I'm I'm gonna have to say, since I discovered Halo Scott, she's also an indie author, I would probably read anything she wrote. I love her writing. It's not for everybody, um, just the content and stuff, but I love her writing style. She's become one of my favorites. But in terms of books that I've probably reread the most, it's probably Tolkien. I will reread The Lord of the Rings periodically.
Oh, that's
So
awesome because I'm not a rereader. So
I'm
to me,
usually not either.
so that makes an even bigger statement because it would really take I read some really good books lately, but I'm just not a rereader, and so it would take that really special author for me to do so. So that must be a super important book to you. Yeah. So, I was wondering, some people like to do this, some people don't. Would you tell us about one of your main characters in the Exile?
So the main character is Andrew. It's told from his perspective throughout the story. And when I started writing that book, I think I was 35 when I started writing it, and I wanted to make a main character that was about my age because so much of the fantasy that had been coming out was, you know, younger teenagers or early 20s, and I was like, I want an adult character, somebody that I can relate to. I mean, I know it's not going to work for everybody, but I think there's an audience for that. So that's kind of where that started. And then his half brother Alexander, who he's pretty close to in the book, that relationship was actually modeled very closely after the one I have with my own brother.
Oh
So
wow.
and my brother, he knows. he knows that was part of it. So, and he was okay with it.
Oh, I bet. I
So,
mean, you guys must be really close, and that's a beautiful thing. And to showcase that through something you're writing and publishing, that's very special. That's awesome. Casey Sutton, he is a indie author also, and he stopped by to say hello. He's got a
hi.
great book out. It's oh my gosh, I have a brain fart. Malphus, Necromancer Unchained. Gosh, don't you hate that? Like, it's like I can remember it all day until somebody asks me, or
Hmm.
like I go to think of it. Um, so yeah, I love that about what you do with your brother. So, like you said, it's just one POV throughout the whole book, right?
Yep.
Epic
The
fantasy,
whole
and
series, actually.
okay, that's really
Yeah.
cool, and I think that that's important for readers to know because sometimes multiple POVs can get very disorienting. I know at
Hmm.
first I wasn't a multi POV lover, I guess you'd say. Now, since I've gotten, because you kind of advance as a reader, you kind of get more evolved, and I've found myself the opposite now. I like both.
Hmm.
So,
And my other series, The Relics of War, is a multi point of view series. There's 6 main characters throughout that. But after rewriting that series, I actually prefer to focus on one character myself. So everything else I've written is either single um, point of view, first person, or single third person. It just that's my preference.
so in the Exile, I keep putting the in front of it. I know it's just
It's
called
okay.
Exile. So you've got character building, world build, or character depth, world building, and let's see, dialogue. How would you put which one favors this book, or what does that book favor?
Oh. Um, as a first in series, I mean there's a lot of character building that goes on, but I also think the world building was very central in the first book. Just because you have to set the stage for everything else that's going to happen. Um, I have had a few readers comment on the Corridan who make an appearance early on in Exile. And if one of you or some of you are watching, they will come back in the third book.
Mhm.
So you'll see more of the giant praying mantis people.
Oh, that sounds interesting. That's really cool. So what are they called?
Corridan?
Corridan. Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so the world that you've set for Exile, how would you describe it?
Oh, that's a big question. So it Exile starts in Novania, which that's the kingdom with all of the laws against dragonkind and mages, and um Andrew and Alex are pretty much just trying to go about their lives and survive without people learning their secrets. Um, Andrew's role is he leads the king's armies, and they've been at war for many years with the Corridan, who are they live in the highlands north of the kingdom. And there's a confrontation and stuff that you get to see in the book. Um, I really enjoyed working on the Corridan because um, I've always had a thing for bugs. I almost went into entomology as a degree
That would
instead
be
of
so
micro.
cool.
Um, but they're sort of a combination of like praying mantis and army ants, and then they communicate more with chemical signals than they do vocalizations. But the female Corridan can speak, um, and there is a little bit of that. So that part was a lot of fun. The dynamics between the siblings was fun, although that's not really world building.
You
Um,
can branch off wherever that mind goes. Absolutely. This is allow you to take your time and go wherever it goes.
all right. Um, so I mentioned Andrew and Alex, but they're Andrew's other half brother, Colin, becomes heir to the throne, and That was a very antagonistic relationship there. I've had some people comment on Colin as well. He's not a likable character, but that was by design.
Mm.
Um, he's I had somebody comment early on that they wished that Colin would die. That
Oh,
was one of the reviewer comments, and I was like, "Oh, well, I guess I succeeded there because he's not supposed to be someone you like."
right. I love unlikable characters. I love to hate a character myself. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that those are important for sure.
Um, and then I guess the last part of the story, Andrew and Alex make it to the Southlands, which it's a protected space. Um, Generations ago, the mages banded together and created this barrier, and there's only one way in or out. And beyond that barrier, the mages are protected, so they end up going there. And the society is a little bit different than what they're used to. There isn't nobility, there isn't royalty. They follow this woman. She's a mage. She calls herself the Oracle, and she can sometimes see the future. It's a little more complicated than that. Her ability allows her to see people's memories, and sometimes she see memories that haven't come to pass yet. So
Oh,
it's a
wow.
possible future. Um, she's she's an interesting character.
That's awesome.
Oh,
Caden, he's like super young and he's writing books already. He always likes to stop in on my lives too. So I just wanted to shout him out. That's really appreciated. And he's got a question. What
okay.
character is your favorite to hate in all of fantasy? That's not a hard one, is it?
No, the one reaction that I'm thinking about, that there's only one book that I almost threw across the room because I got
Ooh,
so angry, and it was in A Song of Ice and Fire, Joffrey Lannister. He he was one of those characters.
awesome. I think that's a good
Yep.
answer too. I always tell people it's like some people are authors. I mean, some authors are afraid to tell me if I ask their most influential book or what inspired them to say J.R.R. Tolkien or The Lord of the Rings or uh, A Song of Ice and Fire. It's like that's a pure sense of an answer in my book. I could hear that same exact answer 1,000 times, and there's a reason that I hear it that many
Mm.
times, which is why I'm asking. So that's really cool. Unlikable characters, um, I think, are a very key part of the story.
Well,
Um,
if you want to have a good conflict that, feels organic in terms of that world, you've got to have that antagonist that works well with the story. They don't necessarily have to be, the big bad evil,
mhm.
but you've got to have some of that conflict to keep things interesting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, in real life, it's like definitely those kind of people are all over. You go to Walmart and somebody steps on your toe or something, and it's like that's part of the story. It's
Hmm.
like you said, makes it feel more organic. I do want to make sure that everybody knows where they can get. I know you've mentioned where they can get your ebooks and stuff like that. I wanted to see if you could let us know what social links you've got and like if you've got a website.
Yeah, I have a website. It's ajcalvin.net. Um, Social links. Let's see. Twitter, because I refuse to call it X. Twitter and Blue Sky, it's both at AJ Calvin. And then Facebook and Instagram is at author AJ Calvin.
Awesome. And I believe
I'm
I've
not on TikTok. I don't usually do videos. I'm not good with that, so
that's
you
one
will
I
not
don't do
find me
too
there.
often either. Yeah, I don't use that one too often either. A lot of they call it book talk, I guess. I know that it's useful. I'm the same as what you just said. I'm not. I like to do videos on YouTube as like view videos and like talking to you, but I think like little short snippets. I never have a good idea. I don't know. Maybe that's just
That's
me.
what I feel like too. I don't have good ideas, and I'm just like, I don't really have time to fit this in with everything else I'm trying to do too.
Yeah, it's not like you can just record it real quick and send it. You've got to do the description. You kind of tag people if you want people to see it at least.
Mhm.
It's not something that happens super easy. I did miss a question up here. I want to make sure I got to it. So, question for AJ: Corridan from Exile or Scorpion Men from Relics of War series, which is winning in a fight? Oh, we've
Oh,
got a
somebody's
fan
read
here.
all my books.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh,
that's got to feel cool, by the way.
yeah, it really does. Um, wow. Well, the Scorpion Men have the advantage of venom, so there's that. The Corridan operate with a hive mind, so their tactics are a little bit different. That would be a really interesting fight.
Now a book needs to be written about it. That's cool. Um, I think that's really. Thank you for stopping in, Plothead. Sometimes I feel weird saying people's usernames. It's like I want to call you John. I understand why people do usernames and not their real name, but
Mhm.
I like that username, by the way. So you've got Exile out as part of the Caein Legacy, and we can pick that up from most retailers, like you said, Amazon,
Yep.
Barnes and Noble, right?
Yep.
Um,
It's
all
available also on Kobo and hardcovers anywhere Ingram distributes. So you should be able to find it on like Books a Million and there's other ones. I'm drawing a blank right now.
I'll do some more research too. I know I've got most. I always like to, excuse me, re-ask while I'm on the live, but I always check for the links before and I put them in the description. Um, this is kind of the part where I let you know that I'm going to have everything covered as far as the links and ask if there's anything that you'd particularly like to highlight or shout out, anything really, that we haven't talked about or
Yeah, so for people who enjoy Exile, Guardian Book 2 will be out on November 28th.
awesome.
Um that's my hardcover proof that I got in from Ingram a couple weeks ago. Um the series is completely written. All 4 books are done. I'm just
Wow.
releasing them 6 months apart. So, if you're one of those that is worried about a series not being finished, this one is done. It's just not all published yet.
That's impressive. That's and I think such a good idea too because I think 6 months is good. Um, because they're not 800 pages. You know what I mean? I think that you did a really good. Oh, okay, sorry. Hi, it's me, Justin from Escapist.
Oh, hi,
I know
Justin.
who this is. All right. But yeah, I think that along with how long your books are any of them much bigger? By the way, like 800 pages.
Oh, no. The well, the longest one I've ever written was the sci-fi project I finished on Saturday, and I don't know what the final page count will be.
Okay,
I just know in terms of um, the page count in Word, which usually is less than what it ends up being in the final book, is over 430. But I don't
that's
know what that'll translate to the final book yet.
cool. I think I was just kind of relate as far as the ratio from like the time you're putting them out to how thick the book is because I know that if it was an 800-page book, that would take a little bit of time, but I think that your ratio is really good. Is I guess what I'm trying to get at. Thank you for stopping in, Justin. By the way, you're doing a great job over there at Escapist. You've got a really awesome author here speaking on behalf of what you're hosting. That's really cool. I think that you do a great thing for the indie fantasy realm. So I feel honored to be one of the stops. So the Caein Legacy, you can. I will have all the links for purchase. November 28th, Guardian comes out.
Yep.
Did I miss anything?
Um, I I don't think so. I mean,
Cool.
I always have stuff going on, but that's what I have for now.
Awesome. Well, I think that's awesome. Oh, I did miss a question. Douglas, thank John Douglas. Thank you. More important question. Oh, this is a good one because he's an orc guy. That's for sure.
Ah,
Are there orcs in your books?
I don't have any orcs.
Oh, I'm just joking. Um, when I first started doing YouTube, he asked me a question. He said, um, "What is your favorite fantasy race and why is it orcs?" And I'm like, "I seen what you did there." But yeah, he's an orc guy, so I like orcs too. But I don't know if I like them as much as him. But I think that the Corridan sounds super super cool. Um, so like I said, I'll have all the links in the description. Um, Guardian comes out on the 28th, and I've really felt honored that you wanted to stop in and talk with me, and I've had a lot of
Thank
fun.
you
And
so much.
yeah, I thank you, thank Escapist and everybody. So again, I've had a great time, and until next time, stay
Yes.
creative, stay moving forward. I'm looking forward to what you have coming out next, and uh, good luck.
Cool. Thank you so much. Again, this was a lot of fun.
Of course, and thanks guys for watching Beard of Darkness book reviews. Until next time, have a good night.